There is a story in the Bible about a pool located in a place called Bethesda. This pool was reputed to have healing properties, and here a great number of disabled people used to lay: the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One man who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. One day Jesus saw him lying there, and learning that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" The man replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." The story goes on to say that Jesus told him to get up, pick up his mat, and walk away. At the end of that story, I'm always left with one question. Why did Jesus ask the man if he wanted to get well? Wouldn't it be obvious that he didn't choose to be sick or an invalid, and that he would rather be a healthy and whole person? Why didn't he just heal him right away? Then I thought, maybe the guy was scared to change. I mean, look at his answer. It wasn't an immediate, resounding yes. I think he had gotten so used to being the guy with the problem that he was stuck in that identity. He couldn't figure out how to move past it, even though to do so would bring him healing. My family grew up in the outer skirts of a small town on a 13-acre farm. We lived there for over 20 years. There was my mom, my dad, myself, and 4 other children. We went to church, we were homeschooled, we were very involved in the community. My father was a much respected man. He volunteered on the ambulance team, ran a small electronics business, worked full-time at a well-known children's hospital in downtown Indianapolis, and got into traveling through missions to third world Hispanic countries. Then the day came that my dad came to us and told us that he had been diagnosed with small lymphatic lymphoma. We learned what small lymphatic lymphoma didn't mean was chemotherapy. What it did mean was 6 months on the outside. 6 months to live. I learned that sometimes to destroy a family's well-kept, maintained world, all it took was one failing piece. Affect the right piece, and lives can fall apart. My father seemed to crumble from the inside out, and with him, my family. Every day took a new turn down a road that was opposite of everything we'd lived before. Life just kind of changed. It was pouring outside when I got a call from my mom one day. Dad always told us that life was 10% of what happened to you and 90% of how you reacted. My dad decided he wasn't going to wait for something else to decide the day he was going to die. So he left us. That was over 5 years ago. Shortly after the funeral, everyone just left. My mom bought a new house. The kids that were still at home went with her. The old house was just abandoned. Nothing was done with it. My mom never tried to sell it. It sits pretty much empty of people or presence, though the furniture is still there. The refrigerator wasn't even emptied out. Since then, it's been ransacked a couple of times. Wildcats made it a home for a while. And yet, to this day, it still sits there like an open wound. Or as I like to call it, a living tomb. My family has been in some way emotionally, spiritually, relationally paralyzed for a long time. The house, I think, stands in testimony to that fact. They're like the people who just settle into identities that revolve around the same old hurts, the same pains, because that's what we're used to. It's like we don't have the ability to move on or to close that chapter of life and start the next one. Or maybe we've just started the next chapter without closing the last one. It could be we've carried feelings of hopelessness for a long time and they just kind of enslave us. That house feels like it enslaves us. Like that man at the healing pool who carried his pains for 38 years but still couldn't answer the question, do you want to get well? Sometimes when I think about the farmhouse, I wonder if my family wants to get well. In a way, the memories that are trapped there, those resentments, they're the baggage in our life, and they just keep replaying and replaying and causing more frustration and more damage. At the same time, it's also all that is left in a chapter of our life that we haven't learned to close. John Newton once said, "We can easily manage if we will only take each day the burden appointed to it. But the load will be too heavy for us if we carry yesterday's burden over again today, and then add the burden of the morrow before we are required to bear it." I think a choice still lays before my family, and we have to consciously make it before the healing can begin. Each year that goes by, I wonder how long it will be before we make the choice and answer, yes, we want to get well.